All righty, what is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome back to the channel for another market update. Hope everybody had a lovely day. Another day, the NASDAQ was down 5% at the low. And with that being said, let's dive into the TA. All right, guys, so if you're not new to the channel, then you know what VIX is kind of suggesting to us right now, which is that it's probably going to continue falling from here for at least a few trading sessions. We typically don't gap up like that, gap and crap, and close out like this. All right, I think it's called like a dark cloud cover. Don't quote me on that one. Screw the terminology. Let's just look at it this way, right? Normally, when we get this going on, we typically will fade the following days. Gap up here, close lower, gap and crap. Oh, what happens the following days? You sold. All right, same situation over here. You sold. Same situation over here. You sold. Okay, I know we're not as elevated over here, but I'm just gonna be honest. Go back, and you're really not gonna see something where VIX is, putting in this pattern here where you gap up the next day and then, gap and crap like that. We just don't have that happening any other time than right here. And over here, VIX from, peak to trough here fell 50%, just about 49%. And this is where I was saying in the weekly update, I was saying we're right here. And if it's going to really follow the COVID 2022 crash, outline there, if it is really going to follow that analog chart, then we're going to see VIX come higher the following day. So following Monday in this case, instead of a Friday like it was over here in the crash. So we are going to see VIX end up, in pre-market, it was going to go higher. And then during the open, it was, after the open, it was going to fade. And then that was going to start this process where we get up multiple days of bounce over here on the indices. Well, guys, that was ahead of time the game plan that we laid out in the weekly update. And what is the actual, what is the result? The result was we did end up gapping up over here on VIX and pre-market. And then off the open, you did end up getting, you end up fading. All right. So, even though it's not exactly looking the same, you had, shooting star style candlestick over here. It is kind of the same exact thing where you had the gap up and you had the gap and crab. You closed lower over there than where you opened. So it's, same thing around the same spot as well, right around 50. And, over here it was closing at 40. It's a little higher there, but regardless, guys, this is probably going to be pulling back here over the coming trading sessions. I can't really just imagine this thing spiking off of this, but if it happens, it happens. It would be gapping up here and it would be going if that's going to be the case. If we see a gap up above 50 tomorrow, we'll see about it. Okay. But until then, it's not really on the table for me. Over here on the indices, over here on QQQ on the NASDAQ, we did end up gapping down 5% here. We did end up getting a 10% intraday bounce. Absolute insanity over here. And actually, I was pointing out these 15-minute EMA clouds over here. I was waiting for him to actually, just curl up here, flip to bullish. And I was thinking we were probably going to get our first large bounce starting up. And what did we get, guys? So, I actually told the Discord about this, over here in real time around 418. All right. And I was saying over the next 30 minutes, we're either going to have price get slammed down and that's going to cancel out. We're going to quickly, get sucked back under here. It's not going to get the bullish cross. Or over the next 30 minutes, we are going to get the bullish cross sticking, holding, and then we're probably going to start that larger bounce. And that's what happened literally way quicker than I was thinking. And yeah, it was all fake news. But guys, holy crap, 40-point move over here on QQQ. 10+% move over here on QQ intraday. Absolute insanity. And then it was, a textbook pumping up over here. You pumped $26 and you dumped over the next 30 minutes there, $28. Like absolute insanity. So that is your pumping up over here on QQ, guys. If you want to come trade the NASDAQ over here with me, I'm just going to say, guys, options premiums in this market right now, they are juiced. So just know that if you are trading options right now, if you are a futures and options trader, I would say, focus on futures right now. They don't have, they don't have IV built into them and crap like that. You don't have to pay attention to that in data. And as we could see, the VIX is sitting up at 50. It's gonna mean, premiums are a lot more jacked than they are normally. A 0 DT call Later in the day here, it was a 430C 0DT. It was still going for 230, like $8 out the money, and I was just kind of mind blown. Like, that's really what the market is pricing in. In the end, you did end up push. It was, right over here. I was paying attention to it. You had this, probably see it still drawn out over here. You're right over there, right? So it was right over here, and it did end up pushing up into the money. So, I guess the market, guys, it's good at pricing things in. As we can see, it's very good at pricing things in. We're getting some big moves, but at the end of the day, they are pretty jacked, and you are putting on more risk than you have to over there if you were trading options in this market. But for the next following days, I don't want to make this video too long over here, guys. I'm just going to try and keep it short here, where I gave my thoughts on the VIX. I want to share my thoughts on the indices, support and resistance, just go over the Mag 7 stocks. And that's about it. That's all I want out of this video, guys. I think we're going to get a couple days of bounce if we're going to follow that COVID 2020 crash analog chart over there. Then we're going to bounce for 3 to 4 days here, and then into the end of the week, we're going to sell. I don't know if that's going to happen Thursday, Friday. We're going to sell into the end of the week because if you close out, the weekly bullish candlestick, like I was pointing out, you close out like that. You close out, like right over here where you gap down, close out the week bullishly. Typically that will bring a reversal. And I was pointing out right over here, we had that set up until literally, I think it was Thursday. Trump started really, just tanking this thing overnight. Yeah, Thursday it was looking really good. Up until then, it was looking really nice, and then boom, that whole rally just literally turned into a upper wick, and that was all she wrote. And then you had from the top a minus 60-point move over here on QQQ. So absolute insanity over there out of all of this. But as we can see, buyers starting to step in. You have the weekly RSI hinging up off of oversold territory over here. So hey, I think a bounce is more likely than not from here because of what we have on the VIX and just across the board at this point. I'll go over in this video. Resistance 434.37, 443.06, 450.15, 459.17. Support 423.45, 408.71, 402.39, and 387.98. Coming over here to SPY, support is going to be 505.89, 493.86, 479.98, and then 459.44. On the upside, all right, above that 505.89, previous gap there, we're just using it as a level. Above there, we have 510.27, 518.36, and then we have 528.60. All right, now, as we can see on the weekly time frame, the RSI, guys, 2022, you got all of this over with. All right, this whole move down, the whole entire move down, 27%. Guys, this move down that happened much, much, much quicker here within 2 months here instead of how long? All right, almost the whole year. All right, 290 days versus 50 days. All right, 2 months versus 10 to 11 months. Big difference, or 9 to 10 months. Big difference there. This is definitely more of a crash. This is kind of price action you haven't seen since honestly, .com era. It's quite vicious what's been going on. These 5% gap downs, 3 back to back to back, that just doesn't happen. Okay. But like I pointed out, the VIX, I know it's elevated, but does look like it's going to be falling. This looks like it can bounce. All right. So we'll see how it closes out the end of the week. I'll just point out the area of interest over here. You are right here at the 2022, end of 2021 high over here. It's 2021 peak right before you started the 2022 bear market. And then if you don't hold here, which, you're right here on the 50% retracement. So also right here at 480, you didn't quite hit it, but you got really close to it. This is something that it's either going to bounce here hard and we're going to have our major bottom, or you're going to come all the way down here. You're going to fall 6.5% lower down to the 0.618 fib around 450. And then you're going to have a major bottom put in there. That is, what Henry Boy over here is thinking. That is, really my outlook here on the weekly time frame. We're entering a discount area. Weekly RSI, even in COVID, this is kind of where if you started reversing from here, we start seeing it, we'll cross like here, we'll say, get above 33. Yeah, it's probably over. All right, the worst is probably over, and maybe we end up getting a few weeks here, a bounce into something like that. But then you're just coming down here, and then you're probably going to have everything be over. All right. Like, you know, I'm going to be honest, guys. People are talking about the end of everything, a recession. People are getting extremely freaking bearish. I'm telling you, bottoms are definitely not put in euphoria. They're put in during fear. All right. Blood in the streets. That is what we have. And, you know, that's what I think the market is queuing up to do, guys. I think it's getting ready for a ripperoonie. And I know, you know, crash, you know, tough call. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm just pointing out we are at an area of confluence. It's either going to be here, it's going to be down there. Weekly RSI is oversold already. It's past oversold. It's past 30. It's under where you got in 2022. Down to where you got over here in COVID. Over here in 2018, that crash over here that took place that, you know, Trump induced 18% over, you know, 3 weeks or 3 months there. Got oversold, got bought up, you know, come over here, 2011, got bought up. Over here, you know, before you had the actual big dump over here in 08, all right, you did end up getting bought up. And this was, you know, it looked like a pretty severe crash at the time. 16% over, you know, 45 days is not what we have now, but it's pretty similar to what we have now. And then you started this, all right, where you had like a 10% bounce back over 2 weeks, and then you bottomed, you know, had this little double bottom. And you went like that, which honestly, this looks like not COVID, 2022 bear market to me, where we came down, had this. I'll just show you. It's looking just like what we had over here. Look exactly like that. You have the double bottom and the failed breakout over here, and then you broke down. All right. You know, bear structure, it's all going to look similar. And, you know, right now, I'm just saying on a larger time frame, like, look at the monthly, look where we are. All right. Look where, you know, over here, maybe we see the monthly RSIs get all the way oversold. Probably not, but maybe. We don't know. We don't know. All right, so those are the indices, guys. We're going to come over here to the Mag 7 stocks. And over here in NVIDIA, like, I just don't think it's going to sell right away off this. I think we're at least going to come to this area. Resistance, you sold off 195. Resistance above 195. You have 104.77 and then 113.22. On the downside, you have 97.40, 90.69, and 84.17. Now, Tesla, this is a chart. Keep it in the back of your mind, guys. Like, this is not something that looks like it's about a bottom to me. Let's look at something that's about to have a dead cat bounce, and then it's probably going to be sold down to a lower low, and then we're going to see 220 or sub 220, 180 to 220, or not 220, 180 to 200. My bad. But, you know, all these bottoms, I'm just going to point out, I've seen this play out time and time again. They normally either happen with a higher low, or they decently undercut the low, and that creates like a divergence or something like that. Or, like, you know, it just brings different buyers into the equation. Us just coming down to the same low just looks really weak. It just doesn't look like strong structure over here to me. It's weak structure. All right, you can see it on the weekly time frame. Like, this is kind of giving me the same exact vibe I was pointing out over here. Like this right here, I was pointing out, yeah, if we just rally off of this, like, that's weak structure being left behind. And this is just left open, probably going to fill at some point. It just looks weak. All right. So, you know, Tesla, I imagine it's going to be moving with the overall market. You have to bounce with the overall market. You're selling with the overall market. If this thing is looking this weak, we gotta stay cautious on the market, guys. All right. So, you know, I told you guys, get the strong weekly close this week. We're gonna be looking real good for the next week. All right. But if we don't, and it's gonna be just like last week, where we bounce Monday into Wednesday, and then Thursday into Friday, we absolutely dump down to new lows and close at lows. Then we set up for another red week the following week, probably. Okay. So, like, just keep these things in mind. You're not out the woods yet, but things are looking up. You're falling off a cliff. Apple over here. Again, weekly RSIs, they're all getting oversold, guys. Like, this is stuff that, you know, even during your crashes over here, like, you could have been buying these things, and you're honestly, just give it, like, you know, give it a year. You're going to be green on them. This is 1993. You know, weekly RSI, it doesn't really get down to where it is right now too often. 1996, 97, 2000, 02. Over here, 2013. Like, you don't get down here a lot. 2010. But when you do, even during your crashes, like I just pointed out, 2018 over here, 2008, All right. Even during the crashes, it's short-lived. Okay. It was short-lived, or at least not short-lived, but it was, you didn't go much lower. Like, I'm talking long-term investors. I'll say what I told you guys in the weekly update. If you are a long-term investor and you're like, should I be buying here? I know I should, but I don't really want to. It's scary. You know, no financial advice, but I'll definitely point out, you know, I already looked back on these. The weekly RSI is being oversold. You could have bought an Apple, Google, Amazon, or Microsoft, and you would have heavily outperformed the indices if you're buying the '08 crash. All right. So, you know, if it's going to be anything like that, like, yeah, the broad market's going to continue selling. And the companies that, you know, they have the stocks that have real companies behind them, and the big companies at that, that the whole world is moving off of, and like as clear as day, there's money coming in and out of these things. They're not going anywhere. There are the safe havens. It's probably going to play out in a similar manner where we just get these bases forming where you don't go much lower. And, you know, that's the market's safe haven. You're not going to be, you know, looking to sell these things too low. You're not. All right. I think that's where Apple's coming down to, you know, value point over here. You already broke underneath the 200, you know, break and retest level over there. But now, you know, you're giving back this whole range you're in over here for a whole year. Okay. This whole year you're in, you're coming down to the bottom of it. Like, you know, these are crazy discounts we're getting. I'm just saying. Okay, just saying. That's Apple. That's my opinion on Apple over there. I don't think you go much lower. Microsoft, crazy break and retest spot, 349.67. Crazy that you're finding buyers here with the weekly RSI just hitting oversold territory. Crazy. This is what I'm saying. Go back. This is '08. Or this is no, the .com bubble. I know we can't actually see price. Right over here, you see it bounces back. You see it right here, it comes back down a few weeks later, a few months, whatever that is, it bounces back. Like, this is legit something over time, over 25 years. You could have bought every time right now, and you waited like a year and you were green. All right. And most of the time, you wait like weeks and you're green. Like, people are thinking the market's about to keep falling off a cliff. I'm telling you, I think we're about to, honestly, I think the worst is over. And maybe we have the dead cat bounce and then come down to new lows, but the worst is probably over. Just keep that in mind. All right. But also, Tesla looks like a piece of dog crap. So there's also that. That's Microsoft, that which I would argue is probably the best looking Mag 7 stock right now. Microsoft. All right. You come over here to Amazon, it's not looking all that great, but you have the weaker side hinging up off of oversold territory. It's going to come down to that weekly close, but we can clear as they see it has the strength compared to the rest of the market. I was pointing out actually in pre-market this morning, Amazon over here just wasn't really moving down as much as others. And, you know, this over here, bullish engulfing candlestick on the day, heavy volume, daily RSI hinging up at the same time the weekly RSI was hinging up. Yeah, I think this thing's probably going to test 188.65 again in the short term. Like, look where it's gapping up to, you know, just after hours. I do think this thing wants, I think the market wants to have a little bit of that short squeeze relief rally. And if it develops into something greater, then so be it. All right. But, you know, this was the whole tariff, the really freak out here, the freak out sell. Like, what if it gets all the way back up here and it's like, oh my God, we just really, you know, just the market straight up panicked and it was in the same spot 2 weeks later. That's going to look freaking stupid to everyone. And, you know, from that point, we'll probably just see buyers step in. We're going to have to see how these things, you know, unfold. But for the short term, you got to be bullish in these things. Like, don't expect this thing to just fade here. You're holding it 2 days in a row, this area. This is a value area. All right, so that's Amazon. We got Google over here. Similar look to everything, but, you know, not as strong as Amazon, like I just pointed out. Daily RSI is hinging up. You found buyers off the 144.34 gap fill right here. Underneath there, you really didn't have support until 131.55, so you want to find buyers there. As long as you hold above 148.20, we're talking 152.30. Get above there. That's where you just broke down from. You already rejected 2 days in a row off that level, so get above there. Above 152.30, we're talking 154.93, today's high, and then you have 158.80 and then 163.24. That's Goog. Coming over here to Meta, guys, another strong one with the bullish engulfing candlestick today. Resistance going to be 530.30, 553.30, and 580. Support, All right, we're talking 518 underneath there, 495.60, 473.96. All right, guys. So, that's really all I wanted to go over today in this video. Bitcoin is definitely finding buyers over here. I would just point out MSTR. That's going to be the focus over here if you're playing Bitcoin stocks. But coin also does not look too bad over here, finding buyers off of that 146.12 support. But like I pointed out, we don't typically see bottoms form like this, like perfectly off of these. We see them undercut support. We bring new buyers into the equation. We find and grab that liquidity and drag it back up. This is usually not, you're usually not going to see this play out, which is why I say like double bottoms, double tops on larger time frames. If you see them like exactly in the same spot, like these two right here, they normally don't play out. Okay. Like this is what I'm saying. You normally will sweep it. All right. Like you had a high here. Okay. And you got above it to bring new buyers into the equation. And then sellers dunked on those new buyers. They stole their money. Okay. And that's what I mean when you're going to grab that liquidity. You need to bring new money into the equation so the market can do something with it. Okay. So yeah, I don't think this is going to hold over here. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I'm skeptical right now. I am. All right. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you want to come trade with me, I'll be trading intraday every day, and I'll be doing my best to kill it in this market. I have all intention on it. So far, you're still killing it in this market. And I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.